What? Really? Right here? Yeah, we can. This is a thing. We've been listening to piano players make all these crazy sounds for years on stage. They can sound like anything they want. And we're like, well, I want that. Can this be done? Yes, it can. It can be done with a few caveats. So let's talk MIDI violin today. What is MIDI? Stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It's just a trivia question, but the key word is digital. And that we've got to have a digital to analog or an analog to digital conversion here. When you play your violin, it generates an analog signal. It's very smooth, right? If we want to translate that to digital, we've got to convert all this to ones and zeros. It can be done inside the computer. The basic idea for doing this is that if we can convert analog to digital, we can map all of these digital sounds now to a sample library. And I'm going to oversimplify a little bit how MIDI works just to give you maybe a better working understanding of what exactly it is we're trying to do here. What is a sample library? Imagine that it's a spreadsheet. All right, I know half of your brains just stopped. It's okay, just hang with me. You can see we've got like 5 spreadsheet tabs open here. If you see over on the right-hand side, like one of them is drums, piano, organ, synth, sax. When we create a sample library, we go into the studio and say this last one is sax. We say, listen, I want you to play a middle C. I want you to play it 5 times. Play it very soft, play it medium, play it loud, play it very loud. I'm going to record each of those 5, and then each one of those recordings is going to go into one of these little cells in this sample library. And we're going to do this with every note that the instrument can play. And then if I say I've got a keyboard and I want to hear this E and I want to hear it soft, I'm going to press an E button and I'm going to press it kind of soft. And the computer's going to register that's an E. It's going to register how hard I push the button. And then it's going to go search for that sound and it's going to play it. So like a drum sound or a piano sound that has this decay, it just plays that sound once and that's it. It goes away. Something with a sax, like you control with your breath, you can play a very, very long note with a sax, especially if you're a jogger. You can play a very long note on a sax. Maybe I only record 3 seconds of a sax player playing this thing. That's what goes into the sample. If I hold the button down for 5 seconds, it just loops it, more or less. Okay, this is an oversimplification of how a sample library works, but you kind of get the idea. So there are 3 parameters. We have to have pitch and velocity, and those 2 tell us where in this spreadsheet to go, which wave file or which sound file to play. And then duration. I got to know when you push the button down and when you let it up so that it plays that note for that time. Okay? Those on a keyboard, it's easy. There's a defined start and stop to every note. It's very easy to map to one of these sample libraries. And one of the keys here is that the pitch and the velocity have to be determined when the note starts so that the computer knows which sound file to play. We know which pitch and we know which velocity, and then the computer can go to that sample library and it can play that sound. Does that all make sense? It's about to get tougher. The violin, if we want to use that as a controller, it's a little trickier because we're not a keyboard where we've got a very defined map of notes. There's no question that this is an F sharp and this is a G and this is a B flat, right? And we also know exactly when that note starts. With a violin, with your right hand, I can ease into a note. When exactly did that note start? And if I'm sliding with my left hand at the same time that I'm easing in, which note did I start? Right? So I don't know exactly when it started, and I don't know exactly which note I was playing when it started. There's sort of a smear there. It's a little tricky. If we play something like this, I'm going to show you guys a picture from Logic. This is a wave file that I recorded, and in this wave file, I had it use the pitch detection software in Logic to sort of show you where it found the notes. And you can see those little lines will show you where those notes were sliding and moving around. You can see some vibrato there right below me. Let's listen to the scale. right? So you can see and hear all the vibrato. You can see where the notes are detected. That was a fairly deliberate piece of playing, and the computer didn't have a whole lot of trouble identifying those pitches, where they started. You might see a little slide up into something, maybe a little fall off at the end of a note, but yeah, not too terribly difficult for a computer to figure out. What about this one though? A little harder, right? You can see on the waveform that we're coming in kind of easy, and the computer's like, I don't know, I sort of heard 4 notes in there. And then we've got this sort of vibrato-y thing at the end. But then look between the 2 high notes there at the end. Look between those. Look down a little ways. You see that sort of block that's down there? Let's listen again and see if you hear a note between those 2. It's just basically just a little tiny bow click or something. It's like maybe just a little sound artifact. That's important. So just set that aside for just a second. With a piano, we have what's called polyphony, polyphonic, multi-sound, right? And with a piano, you can play 11 notes at a time, all 10 fingers in your nose. That's how I do it. That's how they taught me in music school. So violins are polyphonic as well, right? We can play more than 1 note at a time. So because pitch detection software cannot differentiate, if it hears a double stop, it doesn't know what to do with that. It can only identify monophonic single note sounds from a pitch. Going pitch to MIDI can only be done monophonically. Okay, so if we want to, the good news is on a violin, you can only play 1 note per string. I can't play 2 notes on the A string at the same time. That'd be really cool though. I don't know how you'd control that. So anyway, so we just put 1 pickup on each string of the violin. 5 is the proper number of strings on a violin. And then we send those 5 separate signals to our synthesizer, in this case, the GR55. And there's 5 computers sitting there listening to each string. Okay, well, there's 1 computer listening to each string, 5 strings. All right, so we've got that going on. And then the problem is that violins are resonant. If I'm playing something on the A string, the D string, the E string, the G string, they're all actually vibrating. This is a solid piece of wood that is vibrating when I'm playing. And if you look down the string and you're playing on the A string, you can actually see your D string moving a little bit. That creates some problems. And I'm going to show you a little video here. This is a video of the sensitivity settings page on the GR55. And I'm going to play on there, and I'll be playing 1 or 2 strings at a time. And you will see that those strings are lighting up. But you'll also see the other strings are showing signal. It's lagging a little bit, but you can sort of follow. Yeah, the video is a little laggy, but you can kind of figure out what's going on. And then when I'm not playing, there's no sound at all, right? And now you can see G string, D string, A, E, and then some double stops. But look at the strings that I'm not playing. They're actually showing some signal, and that's that sympathetic vibration. Well, inside the GR55, you can set your sensitivity, and this is key. If I set my sensitivity too low, I end up with what we call missed triggers. Like I may play a sort of a subtle grace note, but I've told the computer, listen, I want you to not pay attention to these other strings just sitting there vibrating. I play something that's just a little grace note on a string, but the computer's not listening to that because we don't want all 5 strings firing all the time. It's going to miss that trigger. There's going to be a hole when I'm playing. You're going to hear la, 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 right? That's bad. If we go the other way, if I set my sensitivity too high, we're going to get phantom triggers. It's going to hear every little time I pick my finger up off a string and it makes that little, open A string sound. It's going to hear that and go, oh, it's a note. and you're going to get these phantom triggers. So the key is to find the sweet spot between the two of those for your playing. And your playing is also key. You've got to be deliberate. You can't make the computer guess. You can see in that one slidey lick that I played for you that when computers start guessing, that's bad. It doesn't know, it doesn't understand slides. This is digital. So it understands C, C sharp, D, D sharp. It doesn't understand that there's sort of a mishmash of notes in between those. So you've got to be fairly deliberate in your playing. Don't make the computer guess. And when you got to make sure that you're pulling your fingers off the strings in a very controlled manner so you don't get these pull-off sounds where you've got an open string just popping. So there are some technique adjustments. Also, each patch reacts differently. This piano patch that we were playing before does really well with Pizz. Not as well with Arco. See? Not as well with Arco. So each patch is going to respond a little differently because those sample libraries are all a little different. So we have to be a little bit clever in the way that we program this thing to do what we want it to do. There are 4 paths inside the GR55, and I'm about to go to a screenshot of the GR55 Floorboard software, which you can download for free, and it interfaces with the GR55, and you can visualize things a lot better when you're programming. Okay, see right here there are 4. You see these 4 silver blocks right here? Those are the 4 paths. The top 2 are digital. Those are these sample library patches. And then the bottom 2 are analog. They're basically just your regular pickup coming off the violin. We can blend all these together. If I wanted to have a piano sound up here in this one and my regular pickup sound in this one, I would actually get a blend of a violin and a piano. That way, if the piano didn't trigger on a note, then I still have a violin sound. We don't just have this hole in my sound. So we've created this composite sound that is a little more forgiving. Now, it is not, well, he just sounds exactly like a piano. You can sound just exactly like a piano, but you're going to have to sort of live with the limitations that pitch to MIDI has with current technology. Or if you're kind of living in the real world, listen, we'll just blend these two together a little bit. It's going to have some violin sounds in there, some piano sounds. If there's a missed piano trigger here and there, it's not as catastrophic, right? So some of this is just going to have to be a little bit of cleverness in programming. Speaking of programming, one of the most common questions we get from people is, well, there's all these settings in here, scale length and pickup type and all this. Don't worry about any of that. None of that matters for electric violin. Maybe at the very fringes, but for the 99.9% of what you're doing, just leave it on the factory default settings. Sensitivity is where you need to spend your time, okay? So, all that to say, can MIDI violin be done? Yes, the answer is yes. MIDI's been around for quite some time. The GR55 is the sort of the latest iteration in guitar synthesizers that work really well with electric violins. I don't play MIDI professionally. I don't do it. I never wanted it. I don't need it. But I wanted to interview 2 different players who do use MIDI in their day-to-day playing and just sort of let you hear from them what some of the challenges that they faced and how they have overcome those challenges. So I've got 2 interviews for you, and then we'll chat for just a second before we send you off to the next electric violin shop video, because that is what you're going to watch, right? Yes. So what were some of the challenges that you found with the GR55?
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges. I think the main thing is that you plug in and you got to play just as though you're playing, your acoustic violin that you're used to, and immediately the sounds start glitching all over the place and going out of control crazy, and you're thinking, what? Like, all I wanted to play was one long note, and now it's just going in all sorts of directions. And yeah, I think that was really the main thing that I would say. It took a period of adjustment of learning to play. Okay, this is a whole other instrument. Like, you need to adjust your playing. I mean, playing violin is a lot about precision anyway, but this is like precision, 100 levels up. And like a lot of things, like, I don't know, where you might naturally add some vibrato or something, like not possible with a lot of the effects. So yeah, I guess this adjustment of learning how does this tick, like how does this trigger, how do I actually have to play, how do I have to adjust, pressure and things like that with the bow, and like what all of my fingers are doing. That was the biggest challenge, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So did you find that you spent as much time messing with the unit, the sensitivity settings on the unit, or were you doing most of it right hand?
So there was a bit of adjusting sensitivity, like on the unit as well. Also on the violin, because I used a Cantini violin, and there you can adjust each string. Maybe that's on other violins too, but that definitely did help. I found, but I would say that was maybe like the last 10-20%, okay. And all the rest was very much like getting the technique, like with your body, correct.
Okay. But you got it to a point where you felt comfortable performing with it and you could make it do what you wanted it to do.
Definitely, yeah.
So what were some of the challenges that you faced with the MIDI in getting it to trigger properly?
There's on the GR55, there's a setting, you have to set each string individually just to make sure that they don't misfire, from resonant tones, like you play an octave above and it makes the lower strings start to, trigger. But yeah, that's kind of the main thing is, the lower, you just have to find out that happy medium where it really, when you hit it, it plays and it doesn't react any more than just when you're playing it. So
do you find that you have to make a lot of technique changes when you're using MIDI versus when you're not?
Not really. Well, I don't know if it's just because I've been playing MIDI so long. It's just you find out what works, and just have to be pretty much exact. That's actually, if you play around with the settings enough, you can get it to where it tracks really good. And I really haven't had too much problem with it. I mean, I'll hear a little bit now and then, of if I do a double stop or 3 notes or something like that, it might kick something else off, but not much at all. And music is fleeting. People don't remember that stuff. Yeah,
that's right.
If one wrong note and in a whole verse or something, it's not gonna. Yeah,
we're not saving lives here. It's just rock and roll.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I have had so much fun, just playing with all kinds of sounds. And I was gonna say, clear back in the 70s, I got tired of just playing violin alone, and I bought every guitar pedal I could get a hold of, that would work with a violin. Always been after some other sound,
And that's what it is, right? We're always after some other sound. And that's sort of why we find ourselves in this mess. We're worried about, phantom triggers and sensitivities and digital this and yeah. So it's a journey. It is. MIDI's going to be a journey for you. And like Sorcha said, you got to just sort of embrace the fact that it is your MIDI violin plus the GR55. That whole combination is its own instrument. And you are going to have to kind of figure out how to play with it. Carlis has been playing MIDI for 30 or so years and has just kind of over time figured out how to make this thing work for him. So is it a thing? Yes, it is. Is it really cool? Oh, yeah. Is it without some struggles? It is not without some struggles, but you're a violinist. Like you're familiar with struggling to make something work right? I mean, when you first picked up your violin, it didn't sound good. I got news for you. When you first pick up MIDI, it's not going to sound good. There's going to be a bit of a path. There's going to be a learning process. And there are lots of MIDI players out there that maybe can help guide you through this. We'll do our best to help you here. But I would say just be prepared to walk the path. And hey, welcome to the world of MIDI.